Super Mario Bros. Is one of the most influential games of all time. Despite being released all the way back in 1985, picking up the game today is easy enough. Super Mario Bros. Controls well and feels intuitive to play. Unlike Mario though, some important games that kicked off successful franchises or even genres have not aged gracefully, which is the case of the original Street Fighter. While Street Fighter is technically responsible for kicking off the fighting game genre, because let's be real, no one in their right minds would consider Heavyweight Champ or Karate Champ the fathers of the genre, setting the characteristics that we still see today. Despite its importance, Street Fighter gets completely outclassed by Street Fighter 2 in terms of its impact on the fighting game genre and memorability. Looking back on Street Fighter, it's hard to believe that the series would evolve into the fighting game series. It's almost like Street Fighter 2 wasn't even a sequel to it. And that is for a couple of good reasons. The first Street Fighter only had Ryu as a playable character. Ken was merely a color swap of Ryu, and all the other characters could only be controlled by the CPU. The controls were unresponsive, animations were abrupt, stiff, and awkward. Characters looked generic, and had generic names like Joe. Yeah, it's Joe from the streets. Damage seemed random, with specials absolutely demolishing the opponent's health bars. And I don't even know what to say about this. It's also notoriously difficult to get Shoryukens and Hadoukens to come out. It feels like the game randomly decides whether they come out or not, so you end up having to mash awfully hard if you hope to see them being performed by Ryu. With Street Fighter 2 rendering Street Fighter obsolete, perfecting the rough edges of the first game and launching the fighting game genre towards mainstream popularity, the original Street Fighter is mostly remembered purely for its legacy, curiosity, and not so much for its quality.
You've got a lot to learn before you beat me. Try again, kid.
Likewise, also within Capcom's portfolio, the original Resident Evil is responsible for kicking off a vastly popular franchise, but doesn't hold up particularly well when being revisited. While the game might have been the source of nightmares for a lot of kids and teenagers in the 90s, the ambiences and zombie scariness pale in comparison to the horrors of poorly positioned fixed cameras, tank controls, and awful voice acting.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close.
To be fair to the original Resident Evil, it is a product of the zeitgeist. Back then, early 3D games suffered heavily from camera positioning issues. Overall, game controls were still not perfectly figured out all across the board, and cheesy dialogues paired with poor voice acting were an industry standard. Voice acting, story, and dialogue writing were secondary focuses, following John Carmack's idea that game stories were like porn plots to the extreme. Resident Evil is one of the most important survival horror games of all time, but for those who wish to experience it, they are probably better off playing the remaster that was released in 2002. It addresses all the problems and jankiness of the original, while preserving the core of the spark that kicked off the Resident Evil series. In the same way that someone wishing to revisit the beginning of the Tomb Raider series should probably look for the remastered version instead of the original one. The game's issues are similar to Resident Evil's, especially the outdated tank controls that make some of the platforming harder for people that are not used to this old style of controls. But look, the irreparable loss that comes with the remastered version is the lack of triangular breasts. How can a purist truly enjoy this game if breasts are round? Who even likes that? Looking back at the early 3D, it sure looks silly. But I get it. It wasn't every day that you played a game back in the 90s where the protagonist was a lady that was so stacked. Even if a bit on the triangular side. It's interesting to remember how much of a phenomenon Lara Croft was. I remember when I was a teenager watching a documentary about Tomb Raider, and one of the dudes being interviewed was a 40-something-year-old man talking about how he was obsessed with the character, to the point that he barely interacted with his wife and young son. Which, it's as concerning remembering now as it was watching back then. And look, to this day there are still a lot of people who really love Lara in a particular way. Despite the reboot series' attempts to stabilize her gravity fields, life always finds a way, with either high or low polygon counts.
The moon haunts you!
On the low polygon count side, there's also Star Fox, which spawned the rail shooter franchise that Nintendo hates the most.
I want you to kill
Fox!
Star Fox was a technological marvel for the SNES, featuring polygonal 3D graphics, which required a special chip on its cartridge. While Star Fox is undeniably one of the most important rail shooter games of all time, introducing 3D to the genre and making it more popular than ever at the time of its release, its age is painfully evident, not just because of its graphics, but also because of the super low frame rate, which makes the game unbearable to play. Frequently dropping frames, the game struggles to keep consistent 20 frames per second, which was already lower than the average game of that time, running at something in between 25 to 30 frames per second. And Star Fox constantly dropped to 15 to 10 and sometimes even 5 frames per second on certain occasions. The game was pushing the SNES to its limit, and even the controls suffered due to the constant lagging caused by this. While at the time the novelty of the 3D completely outshone the low frame rate and control issues related to it, looking back at Star Fox now is really rough. Similarly to Star Fox, the Elder Scrolls Arena was a technological marvel at the time of its release, but now it doesn't feel all that great to play. While the Elder Scrolls series has each entry featuring one region of Tamriel, Arena featured all of them, with its map being the world as a whole. To achieve this in 1994, Bethesda utilized procedural generation for the towns, dungeons, and countryside of Tamriel. Besides its impressive world for the time, the game featured a lot of side quests, a spell creation system that allowed players to mix spells, and a day and night cycle attached to NPC behavior. Arena is from an era where RPGs were just ruthless, throwing you into a world with no clues, and even an ant staring at you could kill you, so the difficulty was pretty high. Rats have never been as deadly as in this game since the 14th century. These buggers are more dangerous than the goblins. They will open doors, camp corners, creep up on you, bite your ankles off, and soon you will be hearing Rhea for the 100th time. Worst of all, sometimes you can barely see them or hear them. So good luck if you didn't save around each corner. You will be forced to slowly skip every single intro cutscene, make a new character, and do everything again. Oh, did I mention that this is only the first level? However, what truly makes this game feel incredibly dated are its controls. Before the dawn of WASD, developers just made everyone move with arrow keys, and keybinds were either determined by the first letter of the action that the player would take by pressing it, or by consulting with the Holy Ochimpa Wisdom, who would randomly pick one of the many keys of a keyboard as the keybind. And the wise chimp told Bethesda, just let players move on arrow keys and attack on left click. Oh, make it so they have to swing their mouse while clicking it, to simulate the swing of a sword. Oh, and make it so right click also clicks the icons right below the player's first person view, so they can randomly open their quest log mid-combat. That will be fun. While impressive for its time, Arena doesn't hold up all that well as an enjoyable experience. It is mostly revisited by those who are nostalgic for it, or wish to experience the origin of the Elder Scrolls series by themselves. But surely, one day Bethesda will run out of remasters to release, and we'll go back to Arena so we can explore the world as a whole, right? Well, but at least us, yeah, never mind. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.